I don't get to do all those stuff because I'm a very busy girl. I had school for 6 hours and 15 minutes, but I think I could save some time in. I just need to arrange my watching TV schedule.
Hey, you're saying that you're a busy person reminds me of a nice little story. Baba's sister Money.
Yeah.
Well, she came home from school one day, and the assignment was to write a prayer to God. And so she came home and she told her dad, I need to write a prayer, but we have to do it. It has to be very short. It can't take up much time. I'm very busy, just like you. And, so he said he would think about it. And she came the next day home from school. Well, did you write a prayer? Did you have a prayer? He said he would think about it. On the third day, she said, "Oh, did you write a prayer?" And he said, "Yes, I have a prayer. Will it take long?" And Baba's father said, "It won't take any time at all. A prayer that doesn't take any time at all." You know what the prayer was?
Nothing.
Baba's father said, "Never speak ill of anyone."
Oh, I thought because you said it wouldn't take time at all, so I'm like, he wrote nothing.
Yeah.
But isn't that
You
nice?
can actually save a lot of time. You can save a lot of time by not talking ill of others. I would have saved a lot of time in my life.
That's true.
All right.
There's a quote where that Rumi mentions Jesus. Let's see if I can remember it.
Hafiz mentions him too.
Oh, yeah. This is Rumi, where he says, "The body is like Mary, and each of us has a Jesus within. If suffering comes, our Jesus will be born. But if no suffering comes, Jesus will return on that same hidden road by which he came, and we will be deprived of his divine splendor." It's kind of neat when some of these Sufis mention, someone out of their culture altogether, which is beautiful.
Yeah, this is it. This is a poem from a book that Darwin and Jean published called Awakening Grace, the Poetry of Jean Robert Forster.
Okay, yeah.
A great Baba lover. She met Baba in 1952. And this poem just struck me today. And then I think I'll sing a song by Tim Meyer, a cappella. Give me words. Beloved, give me words that are beyond words to hold my love. All that I have is yours, all that I am is yours. The garment of the flesh, the spark of the soul, the breath of my being. My hours are grains of dust blown from your fingers. My devotion is the reflection of your heart. Lights shine in the valleys of the world. They are your lovers, O compassionate one. I am the least of these lights, but nothing can extinguish my flame.
Lovely.
This is a song by Jim Myers. He wrote it in the early 70s called This Old World Keeps Turning. He doesn't sing it anymore, but he said, I can sing it anytime I want. So this is a good time to sing it.
Yeah, good.
This old world, you remember that song, Jeff?
I have to hear it.
This old world keeps turning. Okay, this old world keeps turning, dark within today. For your love I'm burning, must you stay away? Now the moon is fading into another dawn. Still I am awaiting for your silent song. Beloved, I am crying for your presence now. Every breath is a sighing for your lovely brow. May here I am singing songs of joy and pain. With each note I'm clinging to your holy name. Why must you be hidden from each passing day? The world has lost its meaning since you went away. Or are you before my eyes and I cannot see? Tear away these veils, Meher, show yourself to me. This whole world keeps turning, for your love I'm burning. Now the moon is rising in the evening sky, tears of grief comprising the vision of my eye. While the moon is burning, darkness fills my heart. Thoughts of you returning, why must we remain apart? This whole world keeps turning.
Beautiful.
I asked Hafiz which one he wanted to be read today, and it was Ghazal number 1, which includes a couplet, famous couplet, because Baba made it famous. So he quoted from this Ghazal. Come, O Saki, pour wine into the cups and distribute. At first, love seemed easy, but many hardships followed. In the hopes the morning breeze would unleash the scent of musk from the knots in his hair. In the hopes the morning breeze would unleash the scent of musk from the knots in his hair, what pain befell the hearts from the mere sight of those perfumed and disheveled locks. If your master orders you, drench your prayer rug in wine. The Salik knows something about the customs and ways of the path. A dark night, fear of the wave, a fierce whirlpool obstructing the way. What do the carefree know of our state while standing safely on the shore? A dark night, fear of the wave, a fierce whirlpool obstructing the way. What do the carefree know of our state while standing safely on the shore? How can I indulge in the enchantments of the house of the friend when the bell on the camel's neck shrieks, urging me to pack up and move on? All my efforts in self-indulgence has ended up in shame. How can a secret remain hidden when brought open in gatherings? O Hafiz, if you want your beloved's present, do not be absent from him. When at last you see your beloved, let go of your hand on the world and on time. Jai Meher Baba.
Beautiful. Wow. Boy, you know, the wholesomeness has got to come back into the world. Boy, if we don't get that wholesomeness back in, I'm very concerned. The wholesomeness that we all know.
How do you think we can get it back?
Huh?
How can we get it back?
Yeah, we've got to do it just at where we are. If we do if we do it because we're linked up with Baba, Baba says, you know, whatever he receives, whatever the master receives at a local level is spiritualized and broadcast to the world. So we are linked. What's that?
What does that mean?
In other words, whatever you do at your level, if you give it to Baba, he spiritualizes it and broadcasts it to the world. That's what Baba said. In other words, you're a musician. Say you have a little garage band. You come up with some song among your buddies, You send it up to New York, they mix it, get it all slick up, and then they put it on the radio stations all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Baba is doing.
Jeff, would you say something more about wholesomeness? How you see what whole?
Well, and we've talked about the divine qualities of generosity, humor, kindness, forgiveness, gratefulness. Gratefulness is starting to come in as we get older. We're very grateful for all that Baba has done for us. But all those great qualities that we know so well and are striving to experience are at the heart of us, coming directly from Baba. And but then what happens is people are feeding into the lower values, of lust, greed, anger, competition, revenge, all of those things. Superiority, inferiority, all those. We can do it. I feel down on this level. Darwin was very encouraging. That if I think I asked Bill, we got Bill Cliff here too, but Darwin was very encouraging of that this is possible. This isn't just some far off ideal that we'll one day get to. It can be lived now. Wouldn't you say that, Bill, being around Darwin? Oh, can't hear you,
Very
Bill.
hopeful. Darwin is very hopeful, very optimistic.
Yeah.
And I just thought of an analogy that I read, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen the book He and I. Beautiful, where Jesus would speak to this woman back in the 40s in France, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And in fact, I heard that Erich even liked the book and would read from it. But anyway, there's an example of the little things that we do, even the tiny little things we do in the world are like these little grains of sand. But when put together, you have the power of this great unimaginable thing. It just, all these things add up to something great and beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, all of our little efforts get amplified by Baba because we're linked up with him and help the world that we would like to be helping, among other things. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, let's have a few moments of silence. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Let me see here. Anyway, so the next few sections that we're going to read are Darwin talks about all of the many misconceptions that we buy into. And many of you have heard this before, but I said to Darwin once, what is the biggest mistake the Baba lovers are making? And he said, and he didn't say this critically, he said this encouragingly. He said, they think of themselves as small and they remain small. Think big. Think beyond even the conventional the conventional spiritual box. We are much larger than we give ourselves credit for. And one of the most often quoted lines of Darwin, Bill might remember this, but he used to quote this, all finiteness and limitation, quoting Baba, all finiteness and limitation is subjective and self-created. So that's, and I'm just going to touch on one of these things, and that is the feeling of unworthiness. And because that's one of the major ways we limit ourselves and we limit Baba. We limit ourselves because we sell ourselves short. We limit Baba because we don't think he can forgive us for everything that we've done. So, in fact, when I was young, and I mean, whatever unworthiness I felt in myself, Darwin kind of coaxed that out of me, you know, because the thing about feeling unworthy is you get to think about yourself. You know, you don't have to think about anybody else, and you don't really have to think about Baba. You get to, it's a very sly, sneaky way that the ego gets to indulge in itself, or gets you to indulge in yourself. Anyway, but now Mani, Baba's sister, would say that, the fruit is just hanging from the trees. It's on the ground. It's scattered on the ground. Go for it. She said, what did she say? Don't think you don't have the right to go to gather up as much as you can. She said, even loot it. It's there for the looting. This chance won't come by again in a long time, so go for it. And one of the things that happens is that that's connected with unworthiness is, well, I'm not enough. I got to become better. When I'm better, then I can go and come before Baba. But I first have to clean up my act. And so anyway, I remember this story. Now, I'm not going to remember all the facts and details correctly, but there was one longtime follower of Baba. His name was Keki Nalavala. That is Nashawin's father. And they lived up in Dehradun, which is in North India. And he knew that Baba and some of his mandali were up there in Dehradun, but he had never met Baba. And, days went by and Baba didn't call him, and this was going to be the first time he met Baba. And this is as I remember it, and he and another gentleman started drinking, and they got actually, as I recall, rather drunk and everything. And in that state, the word came that Baba wanted to see him. So most of us would say, oh, well, how about tomorrow, Baba? I'm sure that crossed his mind. But, he just went ahead. This was his chance to meet Baba. First time to meet Baba. But he did say that by the time he got to Baba, he had actually sobered up. But the beautiful thing is that, and I think he knew that Baba was picking that moment, because you come to him as you are. You know what I mean? It's a come as you are party that he has spread out for all of us. You don't have to clean everything up before you go before him. And that was, Darwin was really, really encouraged. You're never going to get it all together anyway. So come as you are. So anyway, that's just the a little introduction. Okay, Angela is going to choose someone to read a section, and then anything that the passage kind of reminds you of or triggers in you, feel free to chime in.
Yeah.
And you can pass if you like.
Yes, feel free to pass.
Desires. More than anything else, our veils result from our attraction to objects and sensations at exterior and interior levels that captivate and preoccupy our consciousness. Such preoccupation amounts to a wasting of our lifetime. Meher Baba says that in our state of ignorance, we are continually in the grip of wanting. Wanting becomes a habit, and we look for reasons to keep it functioning. Our ego is made up of fat strands of desires consisting of psychic tentacles. continuously reaching out for things. And it is reluctant to give up its life. It is very clever at deceiving our minds in order to retain its existence, and even at finding ways to expand its scope. We are like the lean, hungry rabbit who comes upon a farmer's fenced-in garden. After he finds a way to squeeze under the fence, the rabbit eats and enjoys. Then he decides to head for home, but he cannot get back under the fence because he is too fat. We fatten ourselves in the Garden of Eden, the illusory creation, and then one day wake up to the fact that we are captives. We begin to long for freedom. We realize that we have to cease going after everything that comes along. We see that we must slim down by getting rid of these sanskaric veils, our desires and attachments at the gross level. Fundamentally, desires are a repudiation of our innate completeness, not a separate completeness, but completeness within the aura of the Master's divine love and grace. The wanting machine is the only thing keeping us from our completeness. We discover that when we make an effort and manage to stop the wanting machine even for a short time, we can experience our inherent completeness to some degree.
Fat strands of desires consisting of psychic tentacles continuously reaching out for things. It's reluctant to give up its life. It is very clever at deceiving our minds in order to retain its existence and even finding ways to expand its scope. I was describing something like this at the Seven Realities chanting this morning that I was discovering this week about myself. I had an external circumstance happen that really knocked me down, and I knew right away that it was pride. It was what pride was doing. I mean, I could see the origin of all of this, and I thanked Baba right away for it, even though I was horrible feeling for a couple days. And I could feel like what I was saying is that pride about one area of my life, it can't just be about one area of my life. The energy of pride, to the extent I have it, I could see the tentacles in every separate aspect of my personality. It's not just like, oh, I have pride about this. It's the energy with the tentacles. And with Baba's light bringing it in such an intense way, I could see him beaming and those tentacles, dissolving and even transforming in just a healthy dignity, whatever it might be. Let Baba send out tentacles of love and light. And I just had never had that imagery before, that how the pride and shame dynamic, it applies to, it will weave its way into every single aspect of our life, our health, our relationships, our money, our relationship with God, like everything. And so I love reading that passage today.
Yeah, great example. And that the Darwin using the figure of these tentacles is very graphic. It worms its way in, or inserts its way into so many areas. And withdrawing the tentacles is what we need to do, and that's a beautiful way of his describing that.
Wonderful. And Janet, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. We must slim down by getting rid of the sanskaric veils, our desires and attachments at the gross level. And what I notice in myself is that a little bit like what Cindy said, but I mean, I'm attached to my own anxiety. And one would think that I wouldn't be attached to it. One would think that I'd be so raring to give it up. And of course I am on one level, but I notice that I have an attachment even to these things even to these aspects of my thinking and feeling that cause me pain and discomfort. And it's sort of mind-boggling to me how that is.
Yeah, a beautiful. Anyone want to respond, because that is a lot of us are have that same thing where we hold on to things that just really are not in our best interest, but they have our attention. But anyone respond to that? Oh,
We had a couple of hands up already, so if we want to come back to that question.
yeah. Hold on to that, Diane. We'll get back to you. Yeah.
And Gabriella?
Are you unmuting me?
I meant to unmute Gabriella. Must have moved.
Uh, I just want to say, first of all, I think that in this book, if you take the first sentence of each of his sections, it's like a revelation. You know, it's always like this powerful first sentence. And so on this one, it really hit me. And particularly the part about that we become attracted to objects and sensations at exterior and interior levels. So I always think of desire and the external, like, okay, I want a house, or I want a husband, or I want children, but there's this interior desire that I live with, which is I want to feel this way. I remember when I once felt that way before, and I could get that way again, and that sort of thing. So I think for me personally, that interior desire is something I can really look at here. And I was thinking also that it might relate to that it also happens on the planes, because that's much more of an internal thing than an external thing, that these desires don't go away, even as one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we could maybe focus on that. We'll keep the questions or the comments coming, because we may come around to that.
Thanks.
Definitely. And Tina, go ahead.
Yeah, I liked when Janet said she was attached to her anxiety. I feel that too. I mean, I have to obsessively watch the news to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on in this country, as if I can do anything about it, But I just want to know, and I have absolutely no control over, what's going on here. But it reassures me to constantly check the news somehow. But I think it also feeds the anxiety. But it's very hard for me to give it up.
Yeah, no, that's kind of like even unworthiness is another thing that, we just we get to think about ourself, and these things are like huge patterns. These aren't just like they're sometimes it's called thought formations. You can kind of nip it off, but there's layers and layers and layers behind it. Yeah. Okay. We'll see how this comes out. Go ahead.
I think that a lot of times I know that I default to things that were survival mechanisms that I grew up with, and they just became the default place to go. And I was thinking about, we just watched the octopus last week, and how an octopus just has so many tentacles going out, but the octopus is probably one of the smartest creatures around, so everything is very strategic. So when I think about that inner part of me that is, going out there and it's being very strategic, it has a lot at stake of keeping the default the way it is and not letting me extricate from myself from those old habits. So this desire thing really spoke to me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jay Baba.
Beautifully expressed. Yeah.
And Ruth.
Jay Baba. Well, I just have to say for me today, I was listening to Peter Nordine last night, and he talked about three things Baba instructed to beware of. And certainly the first one was, it wasn't actually desires, but desires were part of it. And the second was vagueness, and the third was dishonesty. So anyway, mine today, comes around this piece of desire to be right. So Larry and I went to the recycle center to take up some cardboard and some things we needed to take up there. And there are many people that have the same idea at the same time. We had our masks on, and I was like the judge, jury, and executioner. Anyone who didn't have a mask on, I was monitoring, like big time. And social distance, could they please just keep that social distance? And I found myself actually hating people for not having masks on, which is pretty intense for me to become aware of. And so my need to be right about how to protect yourself is part of what that was about. And, I just had to stop because it was so intense inside me, that feeling of hatred for people who just weren't protecting themselves and others, that I just had to stop and just try to get with Baba for a moment so that I could just let that go, just let go that need to have the right idea about things. So anyway, I just had to talk about that a little bit. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. We've all had a bit of that, especially the way people are carrying on. In South Carolina, especially. Anyone else? So, so one of the things that I think Gabriella brought it up, and Janet, being attached to inner things, inner attitudes, not just external things. We're kind of wise to that, but attached to our anxiety, attached to our unworthiness, a lot of these inner attitudes. Anyone can speak to that. I'm going to single out Larry Pesta just for the heck of it. About the attachment to the inner inner attitudes.
And what would you like me to say, Jeff? We're all attached to our inner attitudes. That's why we're here.
Yeah, but then how to get out of those inner attitudes onto something that's toward the deeper part of ourself. Anything that I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you really are. You should give me prep time for this.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to think about it, Jeff.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else want to respond to that? Because, yeah.
Jeff Asbell had his hand up. Where did you go? Everything moves around these days.
He's down.
The new Zoom, every time a person raises their hand, everything moves. Go ahead, Jeff.
I'll give this a try. And if I'm completely off base, I'm sorry. For me, that inner attitude that you're asking about, I have made a commitment to help myself by making my mind my ally. Specifically, if I'm anxious, and I can be as anxious as anybody, and I know that Janet's question is an important question to address. Each of us need to. What I do is self-compassion with myself, self-empathy with myself, and I can have a little self-therapy conversation, such as, Jeff, all the things you've been anxious about the last year, how many of them actually happened? Hello, Jeff? you keep on being anxious because you're habituated to it. How about listening to what Baba wants? What is Baba encouraging us? I think Baba is encouraging you, Jeff, to be love in action. I think Baba is encouraging us, you, me, to be love in action with my words and my actions. And if I have to begin with myself, it's not that I'm selfish. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to serve Baba by kind of cleaning up the act. I'll be very specific. I've been graced by Baba in the last couple of weeks, and I've shared this with a couple of people already. And I've been praying to Baba to please help me with my anger and my rage toward a number of people in my past life. I might add Donald Trump is on that list. And I couldn't do it. Therapy, this program, that program. And all of a sudden, I remembered about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, a couple of colleagues gave me a book in 1985. Meditation Without Masters was the name of the book. Actually, Zen Meditation Without Masters. And I'm not encouraging anybody to get into Zen, having tasted it, although it has good benefits too. The book said, which I remembered somehow, the book said, it really doesn't matter. And I try to work with that. It really doesn't matter what that person said. It really doesn't matter what that person did. And somehow I had this epiphany suddenly. And it's almost like Baba took an invisible paintbrush of love and I got it. All those people that caused me to be anxious, or whatever is causing you, Janet, to be anxious, or anybody to be anxious, we can all pinpoint them. But when other stuff comes up, and it will, I'm now aware that anxiousness I feel is an old habit pattern that's manipulating, fooling me. It's a tentacle I don't have to listen to. I can say, I'm letting go. I'm doing what Baba wants me to be love and action in my words and in my actions. So I will say some kind of self-love, self-empathy, self-compassion to myself, because it beats feeling anxious. That's a horrible thing, and I've had my fair share of it. So for what half a cent or 2.5 cents I have to offer, praying to Baba for that help, and all of a sudden I've got this awareness that it's not just words. It really doesn't matter. Those people that I was angry with, that anxiousness I even have now, I don't have any, but when I do, it really doesn't matter because it's never going to pan out. It's like, I'll just finish by saying this. I can remember as a kid, my mother used to say, Jeff, don't worry. Don't worry. Now I can really say to the Divine Mother, to God, to Papa, you're right. And I don't have to worry. And I really don't. So if that's in any way helpful, that's how it's worked for me. I can only say thank you, Baba. Most of that anxiety, and not most, all of that anxiety for me and all of those people, those old stories, it really doesn't matter. Be present, be with Baba's love, Jeff. Do what I can do in words and actions for others and myself. It's like a shift. I can't believe that it's happened. And I share it because it might be helpful for other people. I'm just amazed. Like that song, Amazing Grace. I'm just taking it one day at a time. I intend for it to last. But, it's really up to the way we each unfold. I just want to just be love in action with Baba. Baba's love emanating through my words and my actions. That's what I try to do. All that stuff, it really doesn't matter. It seems to matter. It really does. Some of it does and has to be dealt with, no question. But so much of it, it's an illusion. It's a veil. It's a tentacle. Bye. I'm letting go. Let go. Let Baba come in.
Thank you, Jeff. Very good. Very clear. I know we've got some more hands. The line that comes to me from Mark Twain. I've been through many trials and tribulations in this life, and most of them never happened.
I think what Jeff just said is what Darwin talks about at the end of the book of going to first cause, like the original source, spiritual bypass with that. And if we're not able to do the spiritual bypass yet, what I've come to know over the past many years about anxiety and those feelings, there's such a rush of sensation in the physical cells of the body that accompany them. And I think we human beings get attached to that as feeling that we're alive, that we're prepared, that we're connected, that we are, we're going to know what to do with something if we get that feeling. And there's something like called the pleasure principle attaches to it, even though it's negative. You can see that in the extreme with people who cut, the cutting thing. And so when I feel that kind of anxiety, which is normally in my solar plexus and my heart center, those are the two, I think, the dueling, for the solar plexus to surrender to the heart as the emperor, I will know that, I will take some breaths with that to see how attached I am to that sensation. And what I have found is when I have gotten to the place where I let that go, I'll feel like I'm dead then. Then there's nothing. And I think the valley of the shadow of death, that's one of the things when you let go of the old way of feeling the rush of what's wrong with the world, there is a state in between, which is like no man's land. But lo, though I walk, I shall fear, but God is with me. And on the other side, it's spectacular. And then, like Baba says, pleasure and pain, we get attached to both of them. It's not to then get attached to the pleasure of how joyful this is. It's just allowing it to come and go without, and I think it feels like ego death when we let go of that. I said my grandmother lived to 94 and a half on that energy. I mean, it's like life force energy. She lived a really long time on it. And so that's a perspective that I had to offer about why we get stuck with it.
Thank you, Cindy. Beautiful.
Yes.
I liked what Jeff said a great deal. What I would add to that is recognition. So until there's recognition of what happened and what sort of path you just got on, or fat strand you just went down, you'll probably be too late. So it's recognition that this pattern just got triggered. And Tina, I was thinking about you and the news, the addiction to news it's amazing. It's an opportunity though, just to sort of at times turn it off and just let yourself sit there and be with yourself without that. It sort of amps up the recognition at that point in your system. And then having self-compassion and working with it. That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Douglas. Yeah, so true.
Yeah, and Gabriella?
Well, Jeff, that was Aswell. That was very, very beautiful and very inspiring. And everyone's comments has really been great on this. I just made me think that when we said we think ourselves small, so when I think myself small, that's when I become attached to these inner addictions, if you will, or desires. And if I let myself be as big as I really am, I know that it just doesn't matter. And it's about change. It's like little by little by little, I'm actually, I hope I am, I feel like I am a little bit changing to where I know that as a truth. That in the very big picture, in the God, from Baba's perspective, these little things that I, hinge on are basically not important. And most of those things are things that I'm critical of myself about, because I know how Baba would like me to do, or I believe I know how. And so I fail, and then I fail again, and then I fail again, and then I fail again. But if every time I fail, if I didn't just focus on how much I failed, but I thought about, but what would Baba want me to do? Like Jeff said, he'd want me to love myself, and he'd help me to love the other person, and he'd help me to see beyond this small picture and see the bigger picture and try to get a bit of Baba's point of view. That's what he would like me to do, I feel.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There's a definition from Winston Churchill. Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
And Ruth, go ahead.
Well, in the background, my husband is on the computer with some other friends singing "You Gotta Have Heart." So I think that just about cleared it up for me. No, I guess what I wanted to say was thank you, Douglas. I really appreciated your perspective, and I think that's very important. The other thing for me is that I can only do one thing at a time. I find that if I have an issue, I need to just work on one at a time, or else I just get confused and overwhelmed. So if for me it's anger or judgment, then that's what I work on. I have enough with just me and my husband here in the house that I can find plenty of things that come up to the surface that I need to work on. And that's beautiful. I'm learning how to be tolerant and patient, loving, how to pick my battles. I'm just learning a lot. And I really am grateful to Baba. My husband, gratefully, is also learning. So it's not just kind of an unbalanced issue in the relationship. So I'm grateful for those things. But outside of those things, when something big comes up and I see it, then that's it. I have to just stay with that, focus on that, and work on that alone, and not just incorporate a lot of stuff at the same time. I gotta have heart, miles and miles and miles.
Lovely.
Yeah, that's great. And Larry.
Yes. I was thinking about that question, and I've noticed lately that, I don't know if it's because I'm getting old now or what, but I've noticed with Baba lately that when I think about things in the past, interactions with people, like in grammar school or high school, these memories will come up. And then I'll notice that Baba's there, ready to give me an objective understanding of what happened in that situation. It's kind of like Baba puts me in the shoes of the other person. And I'm having these experiences where I go, wow, I never considered that. And that brings me to a sense of repentance and wanting to change. And I've noticed that Baba has, we're supposed to have like a life review process. And I think it starts in our old age before we leave here. There are things that we can untie even before we move into the next dimension. And of course, those are sanskaras that are unwinding. So even little subtle things like that in the unwinding process, Baba is there to give you a different story about the story that you've told about some incidents in your life. So I think we need to be aware of that. And a second thing, I do a lot of energy work, and kind of sophisticated energy work, not new agey kind of stuff, but I'm able to I have the tools and the methodologies to look at some subtle energies. For example, I was studying this week the energies that are associated with Indian yantras. And I discovered this week, looking at those energies and looking at the energies that are in Meher Baba's photos. And I think an important thing that we physically all have in our homes are photos of Meher Baba. And I think that was a wonderful gift that he gave us in this avataric adventure. And I've noticed, and this is all in quotes because it may be too woo-woo for some people, although I assure you this is very sophisticated. Different photos of Meher Baba have different energies that appeal to different conditions. So I'll make a little recommendation of something I do. If I am facing something like anxiety, that big book of Meher Baba's pictures, or there's so many on the internet, just look at the pictures of Meher Baba until you find one that really you connect with. And there's probably a reason you're connecting with it. That photograph has a certain energy. For example, today, I was looking at this photograph which Jeff has behind him on his desk over there. And I noticed that this photograph of Meher Baba is very, very incredible. And it includes a lot of wonderful, rich, healing energy on the physical level. So what I'm saying is, that's something you can turn to. If you're in a jam and you're full of anxiety, go to Meher Baba's picture and just sit there and connect with him and his energy and let it move into your system. We've all experienced that, but we need to make that maybe a practical daily spiritual practice if we find it necessary. Thank you for letting me share.
Fantastic. Beautiful.
So I really like that, what Larry was saying. And I try to remember every morning to entrust my day to Baba and get in touch with what's going on with me, and give it to him and have him work it out, and try to remember to do that as I'm getting caught up in it at different times of the day and in different situations. Of course, some things are a lot more intense than others, but it's fun. I'm kind of getting used to the feeling of how Baba works it out, and I'm trying to trust that he is going to, that he's putting me in these situations and that he likes working them out. And so that's just something that, that I like to deal with. Okay, Baba.
Yeah, even sound systems.
Yeah, right.
Hey guys. Well, I really appreciate what everyone's sharing, and I think that one thing that I'm finding in terms of these desires that are wrapped around in these so-called tentacles, I find it interesting. It's also very beautiful and moving when you look within and you see that it's really his hands that are those tentacles holding these pains and these knots. And there was a time recently where I just felt like he had forsaken me, or I felt, what is all this about? What's all this suffering about? I can't handle it. Why would you do that to me? And it was just that he was burning some things away that I really didn't need to understand. But he was in it all. And so, yeah, it's these parts of me that I feel very connected to. It's I feel it's very challenging to look at them, but I don't necessarily have to know what they're about. And he seems to be burning them away. Yeah, that's all I can really say. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, it's all of that is going on. It's just what an amazing life. Okay, let's go on to the next.
Limitations. One time in 1954, when 18 of us Western men were gathered in the big room in the retreat building in Mehrabad as Baba's guests for 3 weeks, Baba said, "When we go outside this room, we see the hills, etc. Why? Because we have projected it out of us. It is all we. Being in God, we are the sole producers of all phenomena, and we get entangled in that. It is very difficult to come out of that entanglement. This means that we make veils by taking as real those conditions that we ourselves have created in the first place. We impose restrictions on our own consciousness. Through complacency, we tend to accept spiritual limitations without being conscious that we are doing so. We think in terms of separation, multiplicity, and eventuality. Spiritual limitations include being bound by time, which Baba has said is the invention of Maya, illusion. Our sense of time needs to undergo a change. We have allowed it to condition our thinking. We must repudiate the future. For example, Baba tells us how many lifetimes it takes before we reach the goal of God realization or liberation. Many people feel discouraged and think it will be ages before they reach the goal. However, I take the attitude that most of those lifetimes are behind us. Spiritual limitations are deeply ingrained within our consciousness. We are comfortable with them, and to be unlimited seems strange to us. But we can easily experience great spiritual freedom and salvation by accepting the immediacy of the Master's love and grace. To do this, however, we have to stop limiting God. Sometimes we judge His omnipotence and imagine Him to be lacking. We affirm that He is omnipotent, that He can do anything, but we feel and act to the contrary. We may also discover that we are placing limits upon the Master. We have a tendency to unconsciously form beliefs that keep us bound to limitations and actually prevent us from drawing closer to the Master, to Baba. Thinking that we must purify ourselves before surrendering to Him is an example of a limitation based on the misconception that His love for us is conditioned by our so-called goodness or worthiness. By thinking this, we are limiting the possibility of experiencing His unlimited, unconditional love. Or we may think of Baba as of the past and believe that closeness to Him is no longer possible. This misconception is the result of thinking of Him as His physical body. In fact, Baba is of the present and is more accessible than ever. Harboring spiritual limitations has the effect of limiting within our minds and hearts the scope of our possibilities. Baba says that what we have to do is reverse the process of creation and perception without obliterating consciousness. reverse the process of creation and perception without obliterating consciousness. Becoming aware that we are the ones programming our limitations is one aspect of the conquering of the unconscious that Baba refers to.
Hooray, go ahead.
Well, I just read becoming aware that we are the ones programming our limitations. Well, boy, that's a mouthful. And I'm just commenting that. I'd be interested what anybody else thinks what they do to start to unwind that unfortunate opinion we have of ourselves. Thanks.
Any other hands or anyone to respond to what Ray just brought up? Well, I'll just say this, and this is all kind of from what I gathered with Darwin, is we say we're going to go somewhere and we think it's going to be a terrible time. And we go there and we find it was actually, we connected with somebody, we had a wonderful time. Now, normally, we don't hold our mind's projection accountable. You know, we just kind of blow it off. Oh, hey, I had a good time. I thought it was going to have a lousy time, but I had a good time. But that's a serious mistake, you know, because that means that the mind tricked you into a future that actually wasn't the case. So all those things, anytime you, I don't like that person, and then you find out later you become lifelong friends with them. So to be aware of these projections that we put out there and not just pass it off as, you know, oh, I just made a mistake. It's a serious mistake from the vantage point of our consciousness. And and the thing is that by doing so, your intuition starts to develop more thoroughly. Because if you say you project onto somebody, I mean, you think that somebody is honest, and you find out that they are honest. So you know that your intuition is, which Baba says is always 100% correct, is operating. So making a distinction between false mental projections and intuitions is part of getting control over the power of the mind. Darwin used to talk about the tyranny of the mind, and that's one of the ways of getting at it. You know, projecting program. He even used to say to Jean, now Jean would be kind of worried about something, and he said, now Gina, don't program yourself to feel that, because it's going to happen. And then when it happens, you think, yeah, hey, I was right. But it was really, you programmed it and it happened. And that particular, that's a particular trick of the ego. Anyway, that's...
Yeah, definitely. And Diane? Or Terry?
You know, I used to wake up in the morning and I used to think to myself, "Oy, what kind of day is today going to be?" And now I wake up in the morning and I go, what adventure am I going to have today? You know, tell me, Baba, what's going to happen? And it's like, I don't know. It changed a depressed, sad person into one that's way more joyous. It's not easy. You know, I still wake up with that initial feeling and I got to really open myself up and make myself more happy, really. You know, it's not, it benefits me in the long run, but while I'm doing it, it feels very hard to do because it's not how we grew up, how we saw the world. So I just wanted to share that because it's helped a lot.
Oh, beautiful, Terry. Yeah, I mean, because we can program a miserable day or a day that might be adventurous. You know, it all kind of projects out of us, but beautiful. Excellent.
Yeah, Very healthy. And Douglas?
I'm really stuck and caught in this amazing sentence here. Baba says that what we have to do is reverse the process of creation and perception without obliterating consciousness, and wondering what that means to people. Particularly without obliterating consciousness, which is in quotes, so I'm guessing that that somehow came from Baba.
Yeah. Anyone who can respond to that?
Jeff.
Jeff Asbell. Go ahead.
It's a good question, Douglas. And I think we all deal with that every day. And it's about what we're doing this evening. That sentence to me means, please take a look at all your projections. Please take a look at the way you misperceive. Please take a look at the story you tell yourself. As Jeff opened the evening and said, a lot of us feel not very much self-respect, or we have a poor self-concept. So what I try to do is make my mind an ally. It's so easy to project. I do it plenty of times during the day. I misperceive the situation, but I know one thing I can do is tell myself a happy, positive story. And for example, I wake up every morning, first thing I say is, good morning, Baba. Baba, I love you. Baba, I love you. Baba, I love you. Or words to that effect. It's like, I love you, Baba. Baba, I love you. I go back and forth with that. I love you, Baba. Baba, I love you. And then I set the intention for the day. I set the intention for the day. I don't let the day set the intention for me.
Beautiful.
I don't let my unconscious mind, which has all those oceans of negativity, it's there. So what? You're there. I know you're there. Guess what? I'm putting in a different CD today. And whatever the words are that you want to put in your tape or your CD or your record or your story, you can make a nice new story. It's not always going to come out that way, but something like Larry Pester said, and other people have said in their own flavors and ways, you can look at Baba's picture, and that's so true. The vibration of Baba's picture is extraordinary, and different pictures have different connections. You can see energy coming out of Baba's picture at times, or whatever you do see or feel, but we can do it ourselves to a significant degree. If only to say, Baba, would you please put your loving words in my mind and my heart for today? I want to be able to have a day, and you can sort of itemize it with 2 or 3 things. It doesn't have to be a dozen things. 2 or 3 things. I want this day to go smoothly. I want to have a happy heart. I want to be relaxed as I do what I'm doing, or whatever those 2 or 3 qualities are. You can say, I am those qualities. Or I can flop back to saying, oh boy, oh, my worries, my woes, my worries. Baba says, don't worry, be happy. Man, all that, there's such a tremendous amount of projections and old stories that I know is so false. And I know it really doesn't matter anymore.
Oh.
And I'm not just saying that because most of that stuff really doesn't matter anymore. One thing does matter is that I recognize I do a lot of projecting, meaning I see Maya a lot of the day. I see illusions a lot of the day. I don't get it. And I know I don't get it. I have an older friend who's an old Buddhist, and he and I have conversations. And by the time we're done after 2 hours sometimes, my self-concept is totally shot. But I realize my friend Dexter has been loving enough to point out to me how to be discerning with my mind, how to see what is and not pour on all kinds of additional meanings. So, like the song says, put on a happy face. I'm dancing on the sunny side of the street. it's a whole lot sweeter to put on those tap dancing shoes of the heart than allow that old story. I got you. No, you don't got me at all. Baba's got me. His love's got me. And I'm going to be love in action in my words and my deeds. Yes, there's going to be days or situations that will try to topple me over. But more and more, I can get on Baba's white horse behind him, hold on to his diamond and say, hey, Baba, can I ride with you just a little bit? Whatever kind of spiritual happy fairy tale you tell yourself, it's going to be a lot better than that old CD, put on a happy face. The sunny side of the street, that song, put on some happy, tappy, dancing shoes, ride on the back of Baba's white horse. I mean, whatever works that comes out of your mind and your heart and your unconscious, we don't tap into that. And it's there. It's waiting to be tapped into.
Yeah.
As the Buddha said, the last thought, the Buddha said, as you think, you become. Baba said it when he was the Buddha. Baba said it in many different ways. As you think, you become. We can reprogram. It's not that hard. It beats old programming. So we will have a programming parade.
Yeah, beautiful. And that echoes what Darwin's approach to the day. Program a great day for yourself rather than what your son's cars want to program for you. But there are other hands still.
And Mahu?
Yes, good to be here. I just thought I add a few words. This actually reminds me of Baba's words, his very own words, defining as what is a spirituality. And he actually does say that it's the undoing of what we have been doing since ages. And I've actually thought about that before, and I said, well, what does he mean by that? Undoing of what we've been doing since ages. And of course, he refers to selfish motives, of eating, preserving our life, having our job, make sure we pay our bill, all those scarcity that we're all in it, and we look at it as our safety net in the world and so forth. So when I thought about it, so what does he mean by that? And then I realized that, well, whatever that we've been learning so far had led us to accumulating a lot of sanskaras. The very same thing that he's helping us to undo, unwind, and get rid of and clean us up. It's all about that. It's our divine journey of cleaning our samskaras from longing, many lifetimes. I mean, if we're talking about 8,400,000 life, just the human life, well, it's a lot. I mean, thinking about it in the measurable state, it is. And so when he says to just unlearn, undoing what we've been doing, is we can help him in this process. And that's, to me, that's the whole effort and grace concept in a nutshell. You do some, the master does some. You do some, don't take him for granted. Whatever that we can do in our own domain of responsibility, we could do to help him purifying, cleaning, does his cleaning process and transformation of our consciousness, and uplift us to a level where the mundane of life, the allurement of the worldly life no longer attracts us, thank God, anymore. So, that's the effort. That's the effort. And of course, Darwin goes step by step, opening all this loopholes, and that really has got us entangled in many ways. And also, this reminds me of something that Mani used to say, just in a casual conversation. He would say, just try to, when you have an urge to do something, try to not do it, and if you really are hungry to eat, don't eat, or eat a very little. if you have an urge to eat a chocolate or whatever, and whatever our addictions are, she was saying, don't do it, and try to do something differently. And this way, your consciousness learns to do things differently, and then you're opening the horizon for Baba to come in and help you out. So that's all. That's all I wanted to share.
Thank you, Mahu. Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
Very nice. And Gabriella?
Very quickly, I love that Mahu had said pretty much what I was thinking anyways, but what's just that thing of without consciousness being obliterated makes me think this is no small thing we're dealing with. We're talking about changing our very essential nature, and that's why I think he says without consciousness being obliterated, because if it's actually done if it's really done, if it really happens, it's a reversal, therefore an explosion, an energy shift so big that consciousness is, you don't want to lose your consciousness. That's the best I can say that. Thanks.
Yeah. Looks like Rita there.
Yes, Rita's up.
Yes, I'm a firm believer that every thought is a prayer. I'm totally on board with all that. But for those stickier situations that I've worked on and just keep coming up into my consciousness, what I've found has really helped me is when Jeff talked about asking Baba to go back to a past life and forgive yourself for whatever you did for that situation to be happening in this life now. And it's so beautiful because it takes the other person out of the picture that may be causing anxiety. And once again, I'm going to ask Jeff if he would tell that story so Rosalie can stop chasing the mouse.
Ooh, that's kind of a long story. I think it's, yeah. But, well, I could say this. Is this the one that, what happened in the tomb?
It's about, yeah, I think it's when you had problems with a person and then.
Okay. I had terrible problems with a person for many years. and this person was so different from me, kind of. I don't want you to get an idea of who it might be. But the person was kind of authoritative, impersonal, didn't really care, didn't regard me as anyone important, you know, or just kind of dismissed. I couldn't, I could never have a conversation or try to work anything out. Years and years went by with this. And one day this
sounds
person,
like Donald Trump.
Oh, just a second. One person, one day this person actually, things maneuvered in such a way that I had to speak with this person. They wanted to speak with me, which was unusual. And I thought, well, I will just use this occasion to give this person some feedback of how hurt I've been over the years with by that person's behavior and attitude toward me. And, you know, very difficult things happened. But anyway, so I kind of started, you know, I gave my feedback. I'll kind of cut the story short, but I didn't mince words and I was respectful of this person. But I did kind of give some mirror their behavior, not just toward me, but toward a lot of people. But anyway, 3 weeks later, I was in the tomb. And I was there in the afternoon. It was nice, that expansive atmosphere of Baba's tomb. I had nothing. I was just at a feeling level. I wasn't thinking about anything. And the scene of this guy and I talking kind of floated over there. And Baba flashed this to me. And in a millisecond, but a whole discourse. And what Baba said to me is, take my word for it 100%. Not in this lifetime, but in the past, you used to be just like him. You hurt people. You didn't care what effect it had on them. You that was their problem. And you were impersonal, authoritative, and all of that. And then Baba said, and then this person has been in your life all these years to get you to ask me for forgiveness for the way you had been in the past. A forgiveness that I would have readily given you. And I don't know if that's clear, but I mean, I came out of that, I thought, oh my God, the universe is much more compassionate than I realized. This person has been in your life all these years to bring you to this moment when you will ask me for forgiveness for the way you had been in the past. And so what I did in the tomb is I kind of felt deeply over the years how this person had made me so-called feel. And I spent like maybe an hour feeling all of that. And then I said, Baba, I made someone feel like this in the past, this wretched. I made them feel like this. Baba, please forgive me. And oddly enough, when I came back, that person never treated me that way again. I mean, their role was finished. They played a role for me. Not that they were just harassing me. They played this role. And I got the forgiveness from Baba, so their role was finished in my life. Anyway, is that what you were thinking of, Rita? Yeah. So I just tell you, when I'm driving along the highway and some teenager cuts me off and laughs in my face, I say, Baba, you're reminding me of how I used to be like this. The way I treated made people feel wretched. Please forgive me. It's not something that I would have thought myself, because you'd think that other person is the one who should be asking for forgiveness for the way they treated me all those years. So anyway, that came from Baba in the tomb.
Misconceptions. Perhaps most of our lives as spiritual seekers is spent consciously or unconsciously trying to correct the latent misconceptions that have been plaguing us from the subconscious level of our minds. When we probe each of our own particular misconceptions to its foundation, we discover that we have been coping with wrong answers for most of our lives. We have accepted as facts things that are simply not true. We have been brought up with the fundamental misconceptions that the creation is real and that we are individual, limited creatures. And so, right from the beginning, we take it all for granted. There are many misconceptions that we take to be a part of our ordinary lives, not realizing that they are misconceptions and that they are distorting our inner awareness. As seekers of truth, we have to see through the misconceptions and what they cause, and replace all that with what is the nearest we can come to the truth itself. We cannot add truth to the misconceptions. Misconceptions can include the tendency to imagine things and to follow trains of thought. Sometimes, before we even get out of bed, a certain train of thought has already left the station, and we are not even aware that this has happened. When we first wake up in the morning, the mind gets activated, and we present it with a train of thought, which leads us into other trains of thought, and they produce what becomes the content of our day. So we get involved in following these trains of thought, instead of taking control and initiating a wisely chosen train of thought. Misconceptions also can involve low self-esteem, based on an incorrect assessment of who and what we really are. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, is a very profound and philosophically revealing statement. Our everyday thinking, our beliefs, and the limitations that we accept are all part of the bondage that we experience. We start with a conclusion from our subconscious and our observations, then look for signs confirming our conclusion, which in turn solidify that conclusion.
I, that whole section relating to that story you just told, Jeff, it feels like a very powerful connection to me, because it's like this misconception that I'm sure I have a lot of, thinking someone has treated me poorly, or this or that or the other thing, anything that's kind of a bit of a victim thought, really. Yeah. It reminds me of what we talked about last week about Baba telling people to say they were sorry, and the person was like, what? And not jumping right to it. That there's an opportunity, because how am I to know? I mean, I can't know. I don't know. I mean, it could easily be a misconception, and I could just ask for Baba's forgiveness. Almost anything that comes into my life that is like what you were saying about driving the car and everything, Jeff. I mean, almost anything that comes into my life, not that I should then, accept people mistreatment or something like that, but almost anything that comes into my life is an opportunity to ask for forgiveness from Baba. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's that I should have made a point that this is something done at an inner level. You might have to keep a distance from somebody at an outer level, but at an inner level, you remain open to them.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Because that's very important, because there are reasons to keep a distance from somebody on the outside, but you can ask for forgiveness on the inside. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For my own misconceptions, forgiveness at least for my own misconceptions.
Yeah. And Baba is there. He is all forgiving. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we'd be in trouble, folks. Any other comments?
Alan?
Yes. So, Jeff, in terms of many people who are experiencing, their life going on and the suffering that's happening in their life. And it's wonderful, of course, when one can intellectually digest some of these concepts, but to touch into that doorway to Baba in the present moment, and then to touch into these places that you once said are like, sometimes these places can be like filled with broken glass of sensation or experience and pain. You were mentioning before that there's a process that Darwin talked about for himself to give these things over to Baba, or to not carry these things on, because we can't. I don't think in my own going into this, it seems that I can think till the cows come home, but it's not going to change the sensations or the pain or the experience that I'm in. Sometimes it feels as if one is trapped in a complete maze that really only the master can get you out of. And so intellectually we get this, but what is some of the processes that Darwin has shared with you in terms of this? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a longer story, but what you say is right. Is Darwin said if you imagine that suppose you feel a deep anxiety in yourself, and this is Darwin's approach, you imagine that you are giving that anxiety to Baba. The actual sensation of it, it's not anything abstract. You are feeling it in your body, and you imagine that flowing to Baba. What Darwin would say is anything that you give to Baba is gone forever. It gets dissolved, but there's a layer behind it that looks just like the one you gave him. So give him that one. And then there's one behind that. As much as you can do and everything. But he would say Baba is impressionless being. So any impression that's given to Baba is dissolved. And the more importantly, this idea of giving things to Baba, which we can be doing all along, day in and day out. I mean, these things that come up in us that we find heavy and burdensome and everything. Baba, you can give those to Baba, but Darwin said the most important thing is as you give things to Baba and they are dissolved, you're creating more room for Baba to live in you. Mm-hmm. So there's every reason to empty out your heart, all the desires and the negative things in you, give those to Baba, and you make more room so Baba can actually start living in you. And for a while you're sharing space with him, and ideally, eventually, you get elbowed out and Baba gets to live your life. Which, the Mandalay, Baba was kind of living, he could live through them because they had emptied these things out over decades. So, and you think, Darwin used to say, oh, well, you'd like to give Baba a nice bouquet of fresh roses and everything. He'll take anything, the worst of you. But also, Darwin said, also you have to give him your good. The good takes up space in the heart. The only thing that doesn't take up any space is love. So even giving your good to Baba, the good that you felt you just expressed, give that to Baba. But it's like a conveyor belt, if these impressions are going through us, you can take them off the conveyor belt and suffer with them, or put them up on a conveyor belt that's going from your subconscious, it's going right to Baba. That's a whole kind of inner strategy, and it takes a good while for that to become not intellectual, but becomes a real dynamic that you're doing. You can't heal, Darwin said, you can't heal what you don't feel. The deeper the feeling, the deeper the healing. So feeling these things deeply and giving them to Baba is how we very gradually get healed of this of this selfishness. We're all addicted to the bottle of self-preoccupation. It's a heavy addiction to get rid of, and it hurts too. But I think, what Jeff said, Asbel, and this is very much in line with Darwin, in the morning, with Baba, program your day to be a loving day and not one that you have to suffer through and dread. We have to do that work, especially at the beginning of the day. Bill, turning to Bill Cliff there, who spent many, many hours, does that sound a bit like Darwin? Anything that you can add about Darwin and his approach?
Well, he was just the most positive person I've ever met, and he would just keep trying to reinforce those attitudes in us, to be cheerful, to be positive, not to let any of these things get us down, but to keep just giving them to Bob. And he would add that by giving all these things to Baba, it is Baba's pleasure. It makes Baba happy. He would always emphasize that. It makes Baba happy to receive these things when we surrender them to him. Even the worst stuff. That makes him happier, I think, than the good stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
it helps Baba. We think, oh, if I didn't give these things to Baba, I'm just burdening him with it. It's actually more of a burden. Eric said it's more of a burden to withhold things from Baba than to give him the worst of yourself. It's hard for the truth to be felt, but it's actually true. Yeah. Yeah.
I got a quote here I'd like to read if I could, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of these things are always popping out of these different books and folders I have. This is one that popped out. And I read this at an earlier Zoom meeting today. Baba says, this is February 3rd, 1954. This is from an old Awakener magazine. I know everyone has weaknesses, but we must put all weaknesses together and erect a tower of strength of it. That is my plan. For example, one thorn is here, one thorn is there, and thorns could be of no use if scattered. They only prick. But thorns put together can make a hedge that no one can enter. So all weaknesses put together can form the tower of strength.
Beautiful. And, you know, maybe we'll end it with Shraddha. Can you find that quote? Again, it bears repeating from Baba.
Oh, sure. The lower self to higher self.
Yeah, this is very good.
So this is from Lord Meher?
In the 1930s, late 1930s, I think. Baba to the women mandali, yeah.
Yeah, so transform lower self into higher self. Someone asked Hafiz what spirituality meant, and he answered in one ode, unless you go against your lower self, you cannot unite with your higher self. Now what is the lower self? That which makes you think you are small. That which makes you feel that you are not satisfied, not happy. That which makes others see you as small. So the meaning of going against the lower self is to transform this in quite the opposite direction. Be that which makes you look big and makes others see you as big. Remain pleased and contented, happy and satisfied. When you are displeased, unhappy, or upset, and moody, it is your lower self asserting itself. People always put the blame for the dissatisfaction and suffering on others. But the fact is, when one suffers, it is one's own fault. When Sari became excited, she was angry and suffered, and she laid it all on Elizabeth, Norina, and Lucky. But if she had gone beyond the lower self, she would have taken it calmly, swallowed it, and remained unaffected. If you are firm, nothing will upset you. If you try, you will surely have it. I do not want any repression, but I do want transformation. I never for one moment say that you must not get angry. Don't be confused. You must get angry when the occasion arises. But at once you must get it out of your head. If you're not hungry, to fast has no meaning. Spiritual freedom has to be won by oneself, for oneself, through watchful and unfailing war against the lower self and the lower desires. This was in September 1940, Meherabad, from Lord Meher, page 2143.
Beautiful. That Lucky was the monkey who was so mischievous. Well, shall we have a few moments of silence here? Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Any, yeah, I guess everyone can unmute. And if you have anything that comes to mind, if we could get Alan, if we could get Adrian to sing us a song, but I don't know. But,
She's in a meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, this time we'll forgive her this time. But any any comments? Anything that comes up? I mean, it's really wonderful to hear all the different approaches with Baba and how we deal with these ticklish situations in life. All very ingenious and how we do it, how Baba finds a way. Or like Alan said, to open that door to get into him. You know, one thing that Mani used to say that always kind of struck me. She would say, we have to see things through Baba's eyes. Very interesting phrase, to see things through Baba's eyes, how he sees things. And that's getting out of beyond our eyes to see things through Baba's eyes. And the fact that she would say that means that it's something that we can do and not just see things through our little vantage point. Which I'm not saying, I'm not diminishing that. I'll just remind me of a story. There was one guy that Erich relates this, where one person used to come before Baba, and he put on this kind of very sincere display of devotion. And, you know, Erich witnessed this over the years, and it was just, it bothered him. But, you know, he never said anything. But one time this guy did his usual kind of display of phony sort of devotion and everything. And afterwards, Baba said, how did it go? How did the darshan go? He said, fine, Baba, you know. Anything trouble? You know, I'm okay. No, but Baba got it out of him. This guy. Baba, you know where this guy is, you know, coming from. I'm paraphrasing. You know where, but this is what Baba said. You know that he's not being sincere and genuine. It's just a show. And then Baba, this is what Baba said to him. But you don't know how far he's come, how far he's come to be just this bad. That's Baba's, that's seeing things through Baba's eyes. You don't know how far he's come just to be this bad. And Baba has that wider vision, you might say.
Well, Jeff, both with that, what you just said, and that story you told before about being in the samadhi, both of them really make me open my mind to the whole possibility of not believing it, of not believing my mind. They open my mind to the possibility of not believing my mind so much.
Yeah.
You know, just my conclusions and the way the logical sequential thinking that my mind goes through. And it's like they're both like, wait, there's another route you could take. There may be, if I was seeing through Baba's eyes, what would be the other routes that might be possible?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I mean, Baba said to Erich, and I take this, I apply it to myself too, where he said, the truth is that which uplifts another. Whatever crushes another person's heart cannot be true. I'll just back up and say that Erich was very honest. You know, he grew up as a Parsi, and that's one of their highest tenets, honesty. And but one day Baba Baba let him get away with his form of honesty for some years, and then Baba said, you know, Erich, you're very honest, but your honesty is different from mine. I'm paraphrasing here. Your honesty hurts people, can hurt people. And then he said, and mine is different. He said, the truth is that which uplifts another. Whatever crushes another person's heart cannot be true. And even if it's true in a worldly sense, but I also apply that to myself. If I come to a conclusion in my mind that crushes me or brings me down or shames me, I say that cannot be true. Even if all the evidence proves that, but the fact that it depresses me and brings me down means that I bought into some falsehood somehow. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we buy into these things that they're true in the worldly sense, but what is the effect that it's having on our spirit? Is it sinking our spirit, or is it uplifting our spirit? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
So beautiful. I will say that as we have these events with the Circle of Friends and other online events with Baba, I've been so struck with the seeming unconditional love and praise of each other and what they're sharing. And I think that I had never thought it that way. Doesn't matter what the facts are. That which crushes another person's heart can't be true. And I've been experiencing that, like watching the comments at RT when people are singing, or here tonight. It's amazing seeing people affirm one another in wholeness.
Yeah.
Unconditional love. That must be how Baba sees us, with unconditional eyes.
Yeah, beautiful. I know. I think we all have a lot, having been with Baba for a long time, we all have an understanding of the difficulties that we have in living this life and the struggles, and the empathy is there, which is one of the highest forms of love.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I piggyback on something that I think Larry Pesca brought up before?
Yeah. If Larry's still around, let's see if Larry's still around. Yeah, he's still here. Yeah.
Right.
Hey.
And I think I should do this because I ignored my gut and I didn't share before. Now I'm kicking myself. When Larry was mentioning to look at Baba's picture, I remember years ago I read, I think it was The Power of Positive Thinking. And I think it was from Norman Vincent Peale, and he mentioned taking quotes from the Bible and distilling them like a pill in the brain to recondition the brain and to recondition a brain to let go of old ideas. And it does allude to that in the discourses as well. And I remember I had gotten laid off or fired from a job, and I was so incensely mad about it because I didn't understand why it happened. So what I did was I combed through discourses, or all of Baba's literature, Lord Mayher too, and I developed these like cue cards. And risky as it may be, I would go to work in my car, and I'd be reviewing these cars while I was driving. And one of the well, yeah, I mean, I've been driving for many years. I'm like sitting there going, okay, there's a light. Let me go ahead like this. And other times as well, thank God. So it was a little bit safer. But the amazing thing that happened was, I think it's called going from conscious competence to unconscious competence, where when I would be in a situation where I would either be in a panic or some situation where I started to feel worse, these discourses would just pop into my mind spontaneously. And the beautiful thing about it was sometimes I just didn't need to think of it. I just didn't need to ask. It would just come. And it's to me very, very, very embarrassing to me that although I did it years ago, that I'm not more farther along in the spiritual tooth, so to speak. It's embarrassing to me. But I just wanted to mention that it was a little bit like when you go to transcendental meditation, they give you your mantra. I think I asked somebody, what about using one of these discourses as a mantra? And just sitting down and focusing on the mantra or the discourse and just playing it over in the mind, playing it over in the mind, playing it over in the mind. And I think little by little, even though it's not a radically different feeling, it still is a subtle shift from when thinking some kind of darker thought or lower thought, noticing at least a subtle upliftment, just at least a subtle one. At least a subtle one.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, Baba's writing is very, they are really like affirmations. I mean, we're getting
right.
a whole system, or whatever you might say, of affirmations, getting us to rise to the higher part of ourself. I mean, it's sewn in. Let's see, Mahu, see Mahu's got her hand, but I like that. I mean, but that you don't even need your card so much anymore, because what Baba's sayings are coming in and giving you those affirmations. So Mahu, we can't hear you. There, I think we got you now.
Here we go. Now I think I unmuted myself. I just wanted to make a comment about something you just said. And you actually mentioned that Mani said, you've got to see things through Baba's eyes, the way Baba sees it, right? I mean, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing. Is that the exact word?
Yeah.
You have to see things the way Baba. So we don't really know how Baba sees things in when we are living our lives. I mean, that's my little understanding, because it's God's consciousness. In his whole godlyhood, he sees things, and the way he may sees my life, it might be very different than the way I see my life, because of my limited consciousness, at least up to now. So what to do? How would I know that? How would Baba react to such situation? Something that really helps me, and this is Erich told me, it's really useful for me, that he said, you got to, one time we asked Baba, so Baba, what's the last word? What should be, what's your piece of advice on this and that? And then Baba said, you got to start, think of things that you think if Baba is present. Say words only if Baba was present with you, words, deeds, and thoughts. And do things if Baba was present and was with you. And that really is very helpful. Oftentimes I have caught myself in a situation when there's a fine line and I try to justify it and get it done. And then all of a sudden, it's like a wake-up call when I remember these verses. Would Baba would say that? Would Baba treat this little boy like this? And then I have to remind myself, no, he wouldn't. And even we can visualize, like right now I'm sitting in this room, visualize that he's sitting right here looking at you. How would you behave?
Yeah.
Probably
Oh.
really differently. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, it is. So that's
Beautiful.
something to, yeah, really,
Yeah.
really keep in mind. That's it.
Yeah. No, that's entirely true and a beautiful way to live. Because Bob actually is right with us. Just like even on an overcast day, the sun is actually right there. So he's there, and you act as if he's there until you actually know that he's always been there. You know, it's it's a gradual thing.
Jeff,
Yeah,
this is Elizabeth.
yeah.
Well, I also did not say anything when I was urged to say something, so I wanted to bring it up now. So one was back in the section on limitations, the very last paragraph, talking about harboring spiritual limitation has the effect of limiting within our minds and hearts the scope of our possibilities. Baba says that what we have to do is reverse the process of creation and perception without obliterating consciousness. Becoming aware of our programming is one aspect of, etc.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really took that literally, that essentially what we're being asked to do is unravel all of these sanskaras throughout evolution and involution, getting back to the beyond God or beyond God state. I don't know which state it's going back to. And I'm not quite sure how we do that, except by the ways we're talking about becoming conscious and then choosing, like what Cindy said, in that empty space, we choose something different that is opposite or different from what we have done subconsciously or unconsciously. But I really think and I normally don't interpret things literally, but in this case, to me, it sounds literal. So that was one comment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the word reverse these creation is a little bit misleading. It's just kind of stopping the programming is really to be reversing it. But it's the word reverse. I mean, what do we know about reversing? That's difficult, but we can, just stop some of our selfish behavior.
Yeah, reverse the process of creation and perception without obliterating consciousness. So in the beyond state, God was not conscious. Then there was the impulse. Then there was, or maybe it was the beyond God state. I'm sorry, I don't know them clearly enough.
Yeah.
And then, God wanted to know, who am I? And then we have the creation that comes about us. So, anyway, that's just the comment. Yeah. I was wondering if anybody else had anything to say or if it hit anybody. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see what comes up. It's but we know about projection and how we do that. Oh yeah, we got Marcia Maltz here from Chicago area.
Yeah, back a couple steps. Today I went outside and it was all gray, and then I saw the sun peeking through, and then I looked at the sun and I was thinking, oh Baba, come on out. And then pretty soon the sun was out, and I always think of the sun as the Baba's face, like the transcendental sun,
Yeah.
And it was just such a good feeling. And then I kept trying to gather in all that light and hope I could hang on to it all day, and then, like you said, you get your lower self kind of, like me. I don't like to talk too much because so I have to start listening to what everybody says about the higher self, because sometimes I'll have a lot of things to say and I'm not very good at saying them, so I don't. But anyway.
Yeah.
But every day is a new day, it's like, and I wrote something this morning, but it's in another room, but it was to the thing as that, we're living the new life right now. This is it, and no sense to look back or forward because you're right in the moment. But then I said, talking about photos, I just recently moved and I had to, my past came to me and filled in all the blank spaces of the stories that I'd made because I got to look at letters and things before I, and it was really kind of good, but I didn't hang on to it. It was just like answered questions, and then I kind of made fantasies about my father, who he was always gone on the road traveling to work. And I didn't realize he was in the area that I'm living in now. And it was probably at that time lots of woods and lakes. And I think he was out there happy fishing all the time. And I thought he was suffering, So anyway, that's my story.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Marcia.
Sure.
Anyone, any other comments or anything to share?
Bill?
Go ahead, Alan. Yeah.
How's for Bill?
Yeah, Marcia's comment about the sun shining through reminded me of a little song. It's only 2 verses from the 1930s, Jerome Kern and the Bud Parks. Look for the silver lining whene'er a cloud appears in the blue. Remember somewhere the sun is shining, so the right thing to do is make it shine for you. A heart full of joy and gladness will always banish sadness and strife. So always look for the silver lining and try to find the sunny side of life.
Thank you, Bill. There. So, I see Stu is here, but I don't know if how you folks feel about whether to have, and how Stu feels about leading us on a heart-centered meditation. It's all, I mean,
I'm in. I'm in if Stu's in.
Uh-huh.
Me too.
Yeah, well, before we do, is there anything that anyone else wants to share or add? Because,
Well, Jeff, I have one other thing that was bothering me in the last section that we went through. And, we talked a lot about raising ourselves to a higher self and not having our lower selves. But what about the opposite end of the spectrum, which I think we're seeing a lot of in the world today, which is blowing oneself up out of proportion? Which I guess that's the false self, maybe. But
yeah.
That to me is right in our faces.
Yeah, no, you're right. And yeah, you can amplify the lower self and make it look big, but it ain't big. Yeah. Yeah, as Darwin used to say, sooner or later you discover you're nobody, and that is not an unhappy discovery. So it's about giving over, letting Baba fill you. And hey, so that's a nice segue into Stu. Unless there's anyone has any other thing to share.
There's just one very quick thing.
Yeah.
You all gave me this gift of awareness that actually starting tonight and throughout tomorrow, we've all heard Be With Baba as your constant companion. I don't think I've ever really sustained it for very long, but I realize tonight, all of tomorrow, as much as I can and beyond, I'm going to have Baba in the room, in the car, in the supermarket with me, because you know what that's going to do for me? It's going to keep me honest. It's going to keep me from keeping my actions beyond reproach. It's going to be very clean. It's not like I'm such a dirty guy, but we all, in different ways, are not really our higher self all the time. So just came through me through what everybody said and read. I'm going to be with Baba for the rest of the evening and all of tomorrow, as if he's right next to me, because we really, if Baba was with us physically, our consciousness would be really, really to please him, to do the right thing, to be the servant of everyone. So I'm really going to take that as a gift tonight. I'm going to be with Baba for the rest of the night, all day tomorrow, and way well beyond. But now I really have the awareness to make Baba my constant companion, right next to me. It was so beautifully the way it was said by different people, but now I got it. I really got it. Or at least I think I got it. So what I'm going to do. And the point is, I'm going to feel so good at the end of the day, because I know how it is when I review my day, and I could have done this, or I shouldn't have done that, or why didn't I do this better, or more. So I'm going to feel so wonderful. Yeah, I'll kind of like maybe talk to myself, you shouldn't have done this, you could have done that better, but I will feel clean, really clean. It's not like I work for the mafia, I don't. But you know what I mean. I'm not of the right ethnic group to be with the mafia, but you know what I mean. I hope.
We know, don't worry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And what you said, Elizabeth, prompted that a lot in me too. Your question about the end with, thank you.
Good, because I thought it was misguided at first.
Okay, Stu?
I just need half a minute, okay?
Okay.
I'll be right there.
Anyone have something that they can say in half a minute?
Hey Jeff, I just finished that book, The Boys, and obviously there's a lot of talk about sitting in the Dell, and even Darwin's in there with him talking about that, and it's beautiful to see them speaking together on this subject. It's kind of like I don't necessarily hear Darwin talk about the Dell or that place, and that it's not a physical place, but it's somewhere energetically in the body that we can connect into, somewhere near the belly button. But for me, when I'm dropping in with Baba in a quiet place, it really feels like it's kind of the center of my chest and all encompassing. So I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I talked to Darwin about this and Esfandiar. Darwin emphasizes the heart center, the heart space, and all of the, you might say all the other chakras kind of, he puts that's the kind of base of operations. But behind the whole chakra system is the Dell. It's what is called the heart of hearts. And as far as what I gather from them is, when you're on a swing as a child and you had that kind of thrilling feeling deep down, that thrill, that place where the thrill is the doorway to that's where the Dell interfaces with the body, the heart of hearts. And love kind of interfaces with our heart center here, and the Dell is kind of back in and deeper, even though that's just where the heart of hearts interfaces in the human body. I don't know if that makes any sense, but have Adrian swing you on a swing really high where you get that feeling of deep down. It's a slightly different place, but that's like when you're touching on the heart of hearts.
How do you spell that word, Jeff? How do you spell it?
Well, sometimes it's spelled D-I-L or D-E-L. That like Dilruba. That's the name that Baba gave to Elizabeth, Dilruba. that means the stealer of hearts. Well, we should ask Marinaz because she knows you don't know it, huh? But it's a Persian word.
I thought you were saying DELL, like a valley.
No.
Well, in this book, it's spelled DEL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's
Hey, there's a picture I'd like to show, though. There's somebody in there that you might recognize as Jeff Wolverton with Darwin and right there. I don't know if you can see yourself, but Darwin's looking over at you, and you must have said something funny because he's looking right at you and laughing.
Oh, let me just see. I haven't seen this. Wow.
It's in the book. Yeah.
Who's at the bottom? The three people at the bottom.
Doesn't have their names on there, but yeah, I don't know. There's a small little baby and somebody else.
Is it Damien on the bottom?
Damien, yeah, that's right, Damien. Damien's at the bottom there.
And then Jeff is in the flowered shirt, or looks kind of flowered, with his arm around a woman.
Right there, yeah, with your arm around the lady.
And who is?
Darwin's looking over at you and cracking up. Can you see that, Jeff?
Yeah, huh?
Yeah.
I have no idea what.
It said the only description that says is like sometime in the 90s, Esfandiar with Darwin.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And is Spandia the one with the white hair in the back row?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right next to Farshid, who's holding on to Jeff.
Okay.
So let's start with go back to Stu here.
Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, yeah.
And now just settle into wherever you're sitting or laying. And we'll let the world drift away even a little more as we go through this meditation. And start breathing into your belly gently and fully. And we'll keep up this breathing throughout. And now bring your attention to your heart and your heart space. And breathe in as you notice whatever you might see or feel there. And your heart space is the home of Mayor Baba's infinite love in you, in all of us. And keep breathing in and try to be aware of his infinite love. And now picture somebody you would like to share this gift of infinite love with. A person, could be a group even, And it could be somebody you've had or you're having conflict with. This can be very powerful in that situation. It could be somebody you know is struggling. It could be somebody you just would really like to share this love with. Maybe somebody you already have a lot of love for. So it could be anybody. And let your heart guide you as to who that is. And breathe in as you get a good image of them. And again, notice whatever you might see or feel as you see them. And now picture their heart and their heart space. And breathe in as you're aware of that special place in them. And now start to picture Meher Baba's infinite love flowing into their heart and their heart space. This generous, soothing, healing, forgiving, enlightening love. And picture this infinite love just flowing endlessly, filling their heart and their heart space. And you never know what magic this love might do. And keep seeing the love flowing in. So I see this golden liquid, deliciously warm light. Just filling without end every bit of their heart and heart space, and now overflowing and flowing through their heart. And now filling every bit of their being, every little corner. And keep breathing in as you continue to see Baba's love fill their heart and every bit of them. And again, notice whatever you might see or feel as you see whoever your heart has helped you choose. As you see them receiving Baba's infinite love. And now let's give thanks for the opportunity to share focusing Baba's love. And know that you can return here again and again. The love is always flowing, it's always available. And let's bid farewell to whoever you've chosen. And now gently bring your attention back to your own heart and heart space. And breathe in as you just settle in there. And notice whatever you might see and feel. And now picture Meher Baba's infinite love flowing into your own heart and heart space. In endless measure. this delicious, warm, flowing, giving love. It's healing, soothing, forgiving, enlightening, uplifting. And see and feel the love fill every bit of your heart and your heart space. It's just flowing without end from Meher Baba. And now see and feel this love overflowing from your heart and flowing right through at the same time. And it just keeps coming and coming. And now see and feel it fill every bit of your being. This healing, soothing, giving love is touching every bit of you. and notice whatever you might see and feel as Baba's infinite love just washes through and caresses every bit of your heart and your entire being. And now let's give thanks for Baba's gift of his infinite love and the opportunity to focus on seeing and feeling his love flow into and through our own hearts and every bit of us. And know that you can return here and return to the endless pool of love at any time. And now gently bring your awareness back to wherever you're sitting or laying. And give yourself a few moments to come back. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. And if anybody would like to share anything, we'd be very happy to hear you.
Baba took me to Avatar's Point at Mayhair Mount at the V tree and turned me upside down like that was a divining rod and into the earth like being birthed. But what was happening was I was being cleansed of memories, feelings, thoughts that no longer serve, that need to be erased and just transmuted into the earth. And it was painful at times, but also so loving and so potent, and then had me come down through the mountain and up out of the fireplace, Agnes's fireplace. That's the only thing left in the building, like I was being birthed out of the fireplace at the end.
Wow.
For me. And I'm so grateful for that. And my crown is just, so alive.
Wow, that's amazing, Cindy. And you feel lighter?
I feel like I'm in process of something. Like it's still happening. I feel these pinpricks all over my upper head, with the distinct knowledge that Baba's got this.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you, Jai Baba.
Yeah, Jai Baba. Wow.
Thank you for telling us.
Say Baba Stu, thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I kept seeing Baba's image from the East-West gathering from backstage, and I kept seeing the behind portion of Baba's baldy, hair and his little pigtail in the back. And I kept remembering the story on how Baba is so compassionate. He would hug every night. He would hug every single person of the mandali before retiring and going back to bed, and he would deliberately leave one person out. And I read the story somewhere online, and it kept coming to my mind, my heart of hearts, since we were having all this discussion today. Imagine how that must have felt for that person that Baba just singled out. That person, it's so much suffering, it's so much torture. But at that moment, you don't recognize how compassionate he is, that he's making you feel that intensity, the pangs of love, that you're so separated from him and you're going through so much torture. And it just filled my heart totally.
Beautiful.
I kept remembering that scene.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Those are powerful experiences, both of them.
They're remarkable.
I just hope that person got a hug later.
Oh no, he would do that deliberately. He would not give that person a hug that day to just to build up that intensity of love for him and that longing for him. But once they went through that experience, I read more about that story through the Mandali, is that that person later on would get the hug, but because now that they have learned through it, it was, it was now expected. Baba would deliberate, he wouldn't repeat that again. But once it is created, that fire is ignited in your heart, right? That intensity, that passion. In that moment, you feel that so much suffering and torture. It feels like that's so much of an evil experience to go through. But really, he's so compassionate that he's igniting that fire, that longing for love in your hearts. And I mean, it just has that, that experience is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I had a
What a
different,
beautiful thing. Yeah.
I had a different kind of experience, and maybe it's because I've felt distracted. I cannot seem to sit still today, and also not inclined to talk as much, and actually not wanting to, which is really bizarre because I'm usually the other extreme. But in the meditation, I was focusing on someone special that there's an issue with. This person, when I viewed the heart of this person, it was way bigger than I expected. Like, bigger than a heart inside the chest. I mean, it was just bigger. And then I started thinking about those thorns that we read about. And then I saw thorns around the heart, and I thought, oh no, that's limiting the person. And then, so then I thought about the idea that was also spoken of, that these thorns, which are the weaknesses, if you take them out and you put them in a pile and build them together, they become a great
Tower
net.
of strength.
Yeah, whatever Jeff said. Yeah,
Tower of strength, I think. Yeah.
Right, but I'm not exactly sure what that means because I still can't figure that one out. But anyway, still, so that concept was in. Then the next thing that happened was really, I think, the best thing. So I had thought in my head and visualized Baba's love as that golden ocean rolling over this heart. And this time filling in all the cracks created by those thorns with this golden melted butter kind of light, and then filling up this person and flowing out. And I'm not exactly sure what that is going to mean, but that's what came. And then when it was brought back to me, it was harder for me to do this with myself today for some reason. And I kept getting distracted by all kinds of mosquitoes, if you want to call it. Anyway, and kept bringing it back. But so I didn't feel that peaceful, prickly place that Cindy did or whatever. Because I was just too wanting to move around too much, and I kept having to refocus over and over and over again to come back. And I don't know what that's about, but I'm sure it's about something. But anyway, so that was my experience, and I'm looking forward, hoping something will come of the meditation, the focal point on the other person that I had in mind, something healing.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, and you could keep doing it. It's definitely my experience that if you do it repeatedly, I think there's more of a chance of something happening.
Mm-hmm.
Even though sometimes sometimes nothing happens or nothing visible to us, but sometimes something invisible happens and maybe manifests later on.
It actually did happen with one group I was focusing on, and it was amazing. And that was about a week ago, around Thanksgiving. And that was really wonderful. Something major for me came out of it. And of course, with people I love. But anyway, it really was a blessing. And I have to believe it came from doing these meditations.
Yeah. Oh, that is wonderful. That's wonderful. And you never know what might happen.
True.
Yeah, I had largely the same experience in many ways. I wanted to hang in there and discipline myself to go through it, and I picked somebody that I have a lot of bitterness toward now, and working on that. And at some point I felt these tremors going through me, these like jolts, and I wanted to kind of run. And I'm like, just hang out. It's not going to be forever. Just hang in there. But I'm also going through a cleanse that I think is a pretty intense cleanse, and I'm on day 3 of it, which means I get to eat a whole bunch of food that I'm not entirely thrilled about. But these jolts were going through, and I would think it's, the energy that needs to move, that's going to be moving out of there at some point. Also, Shraddha, I wanted to ask you, with that story that you told, is that the same story that is in Erich's book, where he told a story about this little boy that was given the order to, I think it was serving Baba tea, and Baba would tell him over and over again to clean it more intensely, more intensely, more intensely, and then finally at the end, Baba asked Erich if everybody was happy, and Erich said, no, that little boy was you were hard on a little boy, that he's very upset. Was that, are you familiar with that story?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that story, but it is, I think there were multiple other similar instances. This one was specifically amongst the Mandali person, and he would embrace every single person. It was a harder thing to do, to leave out a single person, than to just give them the embrace and be done. But he deliberately left that person out, and that person would go through so much suffering. Like they would just go in their room and just cry out loud all night long. And it was just so intense suffering. And then after some times, I think the Mandali got together and they would share their notes, and they kind of realized that Baba would single out someone or the other just to create that intense feeling, that longing of love for him. It was much easier for him to just embrace everyone, much harder for him to leave out a person. So he was doing that deliberately. And once they figured this thing out, of course, it wouldn't have that same effect on them. So it wasn't repeated later on. It just happened, during some period of time around them. This was, I don't exactly remember the source and, when this happened, but I remember reading that. And during meditating, that came to my mind. And often enough, I think, how can I love Baba? I mean, in person, I haven't even seen him in person. I mean, it's hard enough to love someone whose physical form you've seen. I mean, you still have that friction with that person. And for a person you've not seen with physical eyes, I keep thinking about this. And then this story kept coming in the back of my mind as I kept meditating, and Baba's personal form kept appearing to me from the back very specifically. And it was just so, I don't know, it just melted my heart. And, it the effect was very different, and it can't be quite expressed. I wouldn't succeed in describing that experience, but I felt like Baba specifically had to give, that little glimpse of experience on how Baba can be loved in person, even if you haven't really seen him in human form.
Here's something that in response to what you said, and I went over this with Darwin too, because I had a similar experience of this, that, Baba lived his life in time. He was born in 1894 and dropped his body in 1969. But in the now, in the timeless realm, his life is going on right now. In other words, you can see him as he was in 1932 right now, because he is right there. That the timeless film of Baba is going on all the time. I mean, really. So Valmiki, who wrote the Ramayana, he didn't live until about 300 years after Ram, but he was able to tune in to the timeless Ram's life and timelessness. So, in other words, you can see him. You can see him as people back in the 1930s saw him. In our consciousness, it's possible to do that. So that you saw Baba there in the back of it, probably very graphically, a Baba coming out on the stage, very detailed. You stepped into that timeless place and actually saw him. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything imaginary. It's him. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we didn't miss Baba unless we buy into that Bob was only in history, in time. Anyway, that's
so beautiful.
Yeah. So you can have him at any time. I'll just say what I experienced when I was, that one film of Baba in 1967 called Beyond Words, where Baba it has an audio portion, and Baba is carried out in the chair to the back of Marizad with the. I was there. In my meditation, I could see Baba there. From the left side. I mean, I was on his side, and Baba was gesturing and answering these questions, and Erich was interpreting. And I mean, I felt like I was there. Not that I was just replaying a film, because it was too real to be just the memory, just replaying films that I've seen. I don't know if that, I wasn't able to get it as, I would have liked to have been able to hold it, all the way through, get it frame by frame, but that's my problem. That's my lack. It's not that Baba isn't there. Giving that same message that he gave in 1967, he's giving that message right now. If we tune in to that station, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some remarkable sharing going on.
Oh, and Sharad, I think what you expressed was very well expressed. You said what you said doesn't do it justice. I think you did an awesome job. You're really sweet.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Beautiful, yeah. And look at he did. You got to see him, what you've always wanted. It's not that you just have a photograph of him. You actually saw him. Yeah.
So compassionate.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful.
Jeff, can you say a little bit more about the thorns, the ones that build the tower?
Well, that was something that before you got on before 5 o'clock, Bill Cliff read that very quote about
Oh,
the thorns. And the thorns around, some Bob is saying that you can take those thorns, which are your weaknesses, but if you put them together, they can be like a hedge that can protect you. Your weaknesses can protect you, and it can form a tower of strength. Now, that just how that gets interpreted, you should look it up in probably Lord Maher, thorns and a tower of strength, and you might be able to get the exact quote. But the interpretation of it is worth pondering. Yeah.
yeah, I still can't figure out how your weaknesses can become a tower of strength. That just doesn't. Of course, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Your weaknesses, if you're aware of them, can give you compassion and empathy, which is one of the greatest strengths on earth.
That makes sense. That if you're
Erich
aware,
said, there was a quote that he had on next to his room underneath the glass on this table that was just outside his room. It said, "To behold a single blemish in yourself has more value than to gaze upon the 1,000 lights within."
wow.
Can you say that again or interpret that in another
Yeah.
way? That's a tongue twister.
To behold a single blemish in yourself has more value than to gaze upon the 1,000 lights within.
What is behold?
What's that?
Can you interpret behold?
To see the faults in yourself.
Right.
I'm not meaning that it contributes to low self-esteem. That's, you see those, and that humility is greater than all the spiritual experiences. That's kind of as I interpret it.
And facing yourself.
Yeah.
And the next trick, I take it, is to forgive oneself. Once you are aware of the lower self of oneself or the weaknesses, is to forgive oneself.
And you'll be able to forgive others too.
And it makes me think of Baba saying that he plants the seeds of his love in the soil of our weaknesses.
Yeah.
Not in the strengths. And from that strength in his love grows.
Yeah, it's one of the Mara's favorite quotes where Baba says, "Seeds germinate in soft soil. I plant my seed of love in your weaknesses, not your strengths."
If you take the thorn thing a little further, you could look at all of us as souls, like by ourselves, we're weak, but together, like when we meditate, it's like all the thorns come together and it's stronger and goes out to more people, the energy.
Yeah.
And also, when I was meditating, I kept, towards the end, the song came up, and I wish we could sing it, as "Open Up the Door, Lord."
Oh, yeah.
And it's been in my mind a few days, that song, but I don't know all the words, but I've been kind of singing a little of it.
Open up the door, Lord. Open up the door.
I
can't stand anymore, Lord. Open up the door. It's a poem by Mani. The latter part of her life.
I've been thinking about Mani much more lately, because I was fortunate enough to meet her and watch, listen to her take out all the things that Baba had from her treasures, and she showed us Baba's hair, and she was like so animated and just wanted to tell us about the Baba's picture and his face in the tree and just everything that she could share, It was like wonderful.
Yeah. Hey, now, all of you can stay on. I'm going to get something to eat. And then in about an hour and a half, we'll be back again for the late night chat. So, but anyway, wonderful to see you, Marinaz. Beautiful to see you. Fereshteh, if she's still there, Peter and Rosalie. I don't know where she went, but Alan and Anthony. I don't know if Anthony's still here. Or Jeff Aspel, but anyway, there. Anyway,
Yes,
see you guys.
I was able to stay the whole course.
Oh, good.
I got a lot of art done.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, Stu, thank you so much. Really.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, Jay Baba.
Yes, thank you.